Her hand closed around my wrist, firm but not rough, pulling me from the Gala's swirl into a shadowed alcove. The silk of her dress brushed my arm like a whisper of wind over dry grass. The crowd's murmur faded behind heavy curtains, leaving only the low hum of chandeliers overhead. "I need you tonight," Elena said, her voice urgent, cracking the polish she'd worn all evening. My heart kicked hard, confusion twisting with that old pull I'd buried for years, the one that stirred when she looked at me too long. Her eyes locked on mine, dark and searching. As her words hung there, heavy as summer air before a storm, I felt the ground shift. That's when I remembered how we'd gotten here. I grew up with dirt under my nails and the sun baking my shoulders raw. The ranch wasn't just home. It was the rhythm of my days. Up before dawn to feed the horses, mending fences that split under winter's weight, the endless churn of hay baling when the heat pressed down like a hand on your chest. My boots carried dust from the corrals even to that Gala, gritty against the marble floors. Life there moved slow, predictable as the river carving its bed, but it held you tight. Questions about anything else? They got shoved down deep, under layers of calluses and routine. Clara, my best friend since we were kids, chasing each other through the alfalfa fields, came from the same stretch of land. Her family scratched out a living same as mine, but her older sister Elena always seemed aimed elsewhere. Elena left for the city right after high school, chasing scholarships and deals that turned her into this millionaire version of herself. Tech startups, boardrooms, the kind of life where deals closed over lunches that cost more than our monthly feed bill. She came back polished, her hair sleek, suits cut sharp, but traces of the ranch lingered. The way she scanned a room like checking for strays, or how her laugh still carried that open sky edge. Clara idolized her, always talking up Elena's wins, but I saw the cracks. The late-night calls home when deals soured, the way Elena's visits felt like pit stops in a race she couldn't slow. Our first real meetings happened at those awkward family gatherings. Barbecues under the big oak, where the air smelled of charcoal and cut grass. Elena would show up in jeans that hugged her like they were made for her, not the city threads she usually wore. I'd catch her gaze lingering across the picnic table, holding a beat too long while we passed plates of ribs and corn. Once, during a game of horseshoes, she stood close behind me, adjusting my stance, her breath warm on my neck. "Like that," she said, her hand steady on my shoulder. I laughed it off, blamed the heat, told myself it was nothing, just family friend stuff. But my skin remembered the press of her fingers long after. Things built from there, slow as a creek swelling after rain. I'd help Clara with ranch chores, hauling buckets or repairing the barn roof when storms tore shingles loose. Elena started visiting more. Unexpected drops on weekends, claiming she needed a break from the city grind. She'd roll up in that sleek car of hers, dust clouding behind, and pitch in without a word, shoveling manure or saddling horses like she hadn't forgotten a thing. Small touches piled up, her brushing hay from my sleeve, fingers grazing my arm as we leaned on the fence, watching the sunset bleed red across the hills. Once, fixing a gate latch, our hands bumped, and she didn't pull away quick. The air thickened, charged like before lightning strikes the ridge. I'd step back, mutter something about the work, but inside, questions churned. Was it the heat playing tricks? Or something I'd never named? Those questions stayed buried under the daily grind. The ache in my back from long hours, the weight of keeping the ranch afloat when prices dipped and debts climbed. Who was I, really, out there where the world narrowed to fences and feed schedules? Folks in town whispered about changes, girls leaving for brighter lights, but I kept my head down. Desires? They were luxuries, like store-bought clothes. I'd lie awake some nights, wind rattling the windows, wondering about the pull toward women in magazines, or the way certain glances from Clara's cousins made my stomach knot. But admitting it felt like inviting a storm you couldn't outrun. Elena's visits stirred it all, her presence like a match held too close to dry tinder. Yet I pushed it down, told myself she was just Clara's big sister, untouchable in her city world. That night at the Gala, those buried feelings surfaced, sharp, cutting through the shine like barbed wire through silk. The drive into the city felt like crossing into another country. I'd traded my jeans for a borrowed dress from Clara, Simple black, knee-length, the kind that clung in ways I wasn't used to. It scratched a bit at the seams, nothing like the soft flannel I wore mending fences. The highway stretched out, fields giving way to concrete sprawl, and the lights started popping up like stars fallen too low. My hands gripped the wheel tight, knuckles white against the fading dusk. What was I doing here? Galas weren't my world. But Clara had begged, said it was Elena's big night, a milestone in her climb. I couldn't say no to that. We pulled up to the valet in Clara's old truck, the engine rumbling like it resented the polish around us. Clara bounced out first, her energy crackling. "Come on," she said, grabbing my arm, her fingers digging in with that familiar pull. The air hit different here, thick with perfume and exhaust, not the clean bite of hay and earth. We stepped through glass doors into a lobby that echoed our boots, then up an escalator to the ballroom. Chandeliers dripped light like melting ice, casting shadows on marble that gleamed underfoot. Clara tugged me faster, weaving through suits and gowns, her voice rising over the swell of string music. "Look at this place! Elena's killing it! That last deal? Millions! She's got investors eating out of her hand." Her chatter filled the gaps, words tumbling like gravel down a slope. She pointed out faces, big names in tech, politicians with easy smiles. I nodded, but my chest tightened. The crowd pressed close, bodies moving in a rhythm I couldn't match. Glasses clinked, laughter rose sharp, and the air hummed with deals half made. Clara kept going, her pride in Elena spilling out. "She's changed everything for us, you know. Sent money for the ranch repairs last year. Without her, we'd still be scraping." I murmured agreement, but inside, doubt churned. Elena's success felt distant, a bridge too wide to cross. Then I spotted her across the room. Elena stood by a cluster of suits, elegant in black that hugged her frame like shadow on water. Her hair fell in loose waves, catching the light, and she commanded the space, head tilted, listening, but her eyes scanned the crowd. They landed on me, held for a beat that stretched. My breath caught. She excused herself, gliding through the throng like she owned the current. Clara waved her over, grinning wide. "There she is! Elena, you remember!" Elena nodded, but her gaze stayed on me. Of course. Up close, the dress shimmered, silk whispering with each step. She extended a hand, cool and steady. "You clean up well." Her voice carried that low timbre, the one that echoed from ranch days. I shook her hand, felt the warmth linger. Clara launched into stories, but Elena's attention drifted back, subtle as a breeze shifting direction. The room's heat built under the lights, sweat beating at my neck despite the air conditioning's chill. I shifted, the dress sticking, out of place among the wealth, the watches that cost more than our tractor, the effortless way they held court. My boots, polished but scuffed, felt exposed on the carpet. Conversation swirled, but I hung back, nursing a glass of something fizzy that burned going down. Elena laughed at something a man said, but her eyes flicked to me again, questioning. Old unease stirred, that pull I'd ignored, now tugging harder in this foreign glow. We exchanged polite words later, near a high table laden with trays. "How's the ranch?" she asked, her hand brushing my elbow as she reached for a napkin. The touch lingered, fingers pressing just enough to spark heat up my arm. "Holding," I said, voice steady, but my pulse jumped like a spooked colt. She smiled, slow, like she saw through the words. The party's noise swelled around us, music dipping low, voices rising in toasts. Then she pulled me aside, the party's noise dropping away. The alcove wrapped around us like a secret, heavy velvet curtains blocking the ballroom's glow. Shadows stretched long from the chandeliers, their crystals tinkling, faint like distant wind chimes. Elena's breath came quick against my ear, warm and uneven, cutting through the cool draft that slipped under the fabric. She hadn't let go of my wrist, her grip steady, thumb pressing just enough to anchor me there. The party's roar dulled to a hum, voices and music blending into something far off, leaving this pocket of quiet that felt too small for the weight between us. "I need you tonight," she said again, the words raw, scraping past the composed edge she'd held all evening. Her voice dropped low, not a command but a plea, cracking like dry earth under boot heels. I froze, heart thudding like a horse's hooves pounding the corral dirt after a long ride. Shock hit me square, flooding my chest with heat that spread up my neck. Questions piled in. Why me? Why now? What did she mean? But they stuck in my throat, thick as mud after rain. Years of brushing off her glances, telling myself they were nothing, crashed against this moment. The pull I'd ignored, that quiet stir when her eyes met mine across a field or a crowded room, surged up unbidden. She stepped closer, the silk of her dress whispering against my borrowed one. Her face softened in the dim light, lines of fatigue showing around her eyes, the kind that came from too many late nights staring at screens or shaking hands that meant nothing. "This world," she murmured, gesturing vaguely toward the curtain. "It's all shine and deals, but it's empty. People talk at you, not with you. I see it in you, though, the realness, the way you hold steady, like the ranch ground you walk on. I can't do this alone tonight." Her vulnerability hung there, bare as a stripped branch in winter, and it tugged at something deep in me. Elena, the millionaire who'd built walls of glass and steel, admitting she was lonely? It mirrored my own buried aches, the isolation of wide-open spaces where no one asked the hard questions. I swallowed, searching her face. Her eyes, dark and unflinching, held mine without wavering, pulling me in like gravity after a fall. "Elena, My voice faltered, words trailing into the charged air. Part of me wanted to pull back, step into the crowd's safety, blame the wine or the lights playing tricks. But her hand shifted, fingers tracing a slow line along my wrist, light as a feather on still water. The touch awakened a warmth I'd denied for so long, spreading slow from her skin to mine, coiling low in my belly. It wasn't just heat, it was recognition, like finding a path you'd always known but never taken. My pulse raced under her fingertips and I didn't move away, couldn't. The alcove felt smaller, the shadows closer, wrapping us in this fragile space where pretense cracked. She leaned in, her forehead nearly touching mine, breath mingling with the faint scent of her perfume. Something clean, like rain on sagebrush. "I've watched you for years," she confessed, voice barely above a whisper. "At those gatherings, helping Clara, standing there with the sun on your face, you don't bend for anyone. But tonight, I need that strength. Just for a few hours. Please?" The raw need in her eyes broke something in me, a dam I'd built against feelings I couldn't name. Back home, desires like this stayed hidden, folded away like old letters in a drawer. Women didn't talk about it, not out loud, not where church eyes watched and tongues wagged over fences. But here, in this city hideaway, it felt possible. Her fingers tightened slightly, not demanding, but asking, and the warmth bloomed fuller, chasing away the chill of doubt. Time stretched, the party's distant laughter a reminder of the world waiting outside. My mind raced. Clara, just beyond the curtain, oblivious, the ranch pulling me back to dawn chores and unspoken routines. Yet Elena's gaze held steady, seeing past the dust and calluses to the woman underneath, the one questioning her place in a world too narrow. I nodded, slow, the decision settling like dust after a wind dies down. "Okay," I breathed, the word small but solid. We slipped away from the gala then, her hand guiding mine through the side door. The night air hit cool on my heated skin, carrying the city's hum and a hint of distant rain. We moved quick through the side exit, her fingers laced loose with mine, leading me past valets who didn't glance twice. The cool night wrapped around us, chasing the gala's stuffy heat, and I breathed deep, tasting the city's edge, exhaust mixed with rain-damp concrete. Elena's car waited curbside, sleek and black, humming low when she clicked the fob. She opened my door first, a small gesture that stuck with me, then slid behind the wheel. The leather seats creaked under us, cool against my legs through the dress. She pulled out smooth, tires whispering on the pavement, and the city streets blurred past, neon signs bleeding into streaks, high-rises looming like canyon walls at dusk. Silence settled thick at first, the kind that presses in after words too big to hold. Her hand rested on the gear shift, close to mine on the console, knuckles brushing now and then with each shift. I stared out the window, watching lights flicker like fireflies trapped in jars, my pulse still racing from the alcove. The pull between us hummed, unspoken, like the engine's low rumble. Elena drove steady, weaving through traffic, but her shoulders carried tension, tight as fence wire pulled taut. She broke the quiet after a few blocks, voice soft against the road noise. Building this empire, it's like herding shadows. Every deal feels like wrestling a storm. Nights staring at numbers that don't add up, mornings shaking hands with people who see dollar signs, not faces. Her words spilled slow, laced with weariness I'd never heard from her before. She glanced my way, eyes catching the dashboard glow. I started with nothing, scraping loans after leaving the ranch. Thought success would fill the gaps, but it's lonely up there. No one asks how you really are. They just want what you can give. I nodded, feeling the weight in her tone, like carrying a full water bucket uphill. Her hand flexed on the shift, inches from mine, and the air in the car warmed, charged with her honesty. I shifted in my seat, the leather sticking slightly. Back home, it's a different kind of alone, I said, words coming hesitant, like pulling them from deep mud. The ranch stretches out forever. Fences to mend, calves to pull at dawn, days blending into one long pull. Isolation creeps in slow, like frost on the windows. Folks know your business before you do. Church on Sundays where eyes linger if you step wrong. Desires? They stay buried, unspoken, under the weight of keeping things steady. I've wondered about mine for years. Glances that linger too long, feelings that don't fit the mold. But saying it out loud? That's inviting the wind to tear the barn down. My voice dropped, the confession hanging heavy, mirroring her own. The rural quiet I'd known felt vast in that moment, a counter to her city's rush, both trapping in their way. Our glances started holding longer then, stealing across the console when lights turned red. Hers would flick to mine, dark and searching, pulling me in deeper each time. The air thickened with possibility, warm and close, like the heat rising off sun-baked earth after a dry spell. I caught myself tracing the line of her jaw in the passing glow, the way her lips pressed thoughtful. She smiled faint once, catching me, and didn't look away. The space between us shrank, unspoken wants building like thunderheads rolling in. She pulled over suddenly in a dark stretch, away from the main drag, the car idling soft under sodium lamps that buzzed overhead. No words, just her hand lifting from the shift, palm cupping my cheek, warm and sure. Her thumb brushed my skin, light as a leaf falling, and I leaned into it, breath catching. The touch sparked, steadying the turn inside me, promising more than the night had offered so far. Inside her penthouse, the door closed behind us, sealing us in. The door clicked shut behind us, the sound echoing soft in the high-ceilinged space. Elena's penthouse stretched out like a canyon at dawn. Sleek lines of glass and steel, floors polished to a mirror shine that caught the city lights filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. It clashed with my rough edges, the calluses on my hands from gripping reins, the faint scent of ranch dust still clinging to my skin under the dress. Couches in deep gray leather curved like river bends, a bar cart gleaming with bottles that probably cost more than our hay harvest. I stood there, feeling exposed, like a colt stepped into a stall too clean. But Elena's focus pulled me in, her gaze steady as she shrugged off her wrap, letting it drape over a chair. No rush in her movements, just a quiet command that made the space feel smaller, warmer. She crossed to the bar, heels clicking faint on the hardwood, and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. Whiskey, by the smell, sharp and oaken. Handing me one, her fingers brushed mine, deliberate, lingering a second longer than needed. "To real nights," she said, clinking her glass to mine. We settled on the couch, the leather cool against my bare arms, sinking in like soft earth after rain. The talk started easy, circling family like wagons at dusk. She spoke of their pa, how he'd pushed her out the door with a mix of pride and fear, his rough hands on her shoulders the last time she'd seen him whole. He built the ranch steady, but never said the words. Died holding on to regrets, I think. Her voice carried the weight, eyes distant on the skyline. I shared back, words tumbling slow, the way my own folks expected the land to swallow questions whole. Ma's Bible verses on Sundays that boxed feelings tight. Hidden pain surfaced then, raw as a fresh scrape. Her deals that left her hollow, climbing ladders that led nowhere warm. My days mending what broke, burying desires under chores that never ended. The whiskey burned smooth going down, loosening the knots. Her laugh came close when I told of the time a calf got tangled in the fence wire, my scramble to free it while mud sucked at my boots. It rolled low, genuine, vibrating the air between us. She leaned in, elbow on the cushion, and I caught her eyes tracing my lips, slow and unhurried, mirroring the way mine drifted to the curve of her neck, the pulse there faint under the skin. Sapphic stirrings woke sharp, that pull I'd named in whispers to myself on long rides, now alive in the lamplight. The room's cool edges faded, replaced by the heat building low, her scent, clean soap and faint perfume, drawing me nearer. No words for it yet, just the shift, like wind changing before a front moves in. Bodies inched closer on the couch, natural as settling by a fire. Her knee brushed mine first, staying put, and I didn't pull away. Hands found shoulders then, mine tentative on hers, feeling the muscle taut under silk. Hers sliding up my arm, thumb circling slow. Breaths synced, in and out. The space narrowing until her face was inches from mine. Eyes dark pools reflecting the city's glow. The draw pulled steady, magnetic, awakening nerves I'd kept dormant, like roots stirring under frozen ground. My heart thudded heavy, matching the quiet rhythm of the room, and her hand cupped my jaw, tilting gentle. The kiss came soft at first, lips meeting like hands clasping after years apart, warm, searching, tasting of whiskey and want. We broke apart, breathing quick, foreheads touching, but the crack widened, emotional now. This scares me, I admitted, voice rough, hand still on her shoulder. What it means. Back home, it's not just words. Eyes watch, judgments stick like burrs. I've fought this awakening, told myself it was nothing, just the quiet playing tricks. But you make it real. Tears pricked, hot and unbidden, the fear of unraveling everything, the ranch, Clara, the life I'd built, steady. Elena's thumb wiped a stray one from my cheek, her gaze unflinching. Me too, she whispered. This world chews up the soft parts. I've hidden mine, chased success to outrun it. But with you, it's like coming home to ground that holds. The confession hung, vulnerable, stripping masks we'd worn, her city armor, my rural silence, leaving us bare, connected in the ache. Night deepened outside, stars lost to the urban haze, pulling us toward the bedroom where barriers would fall. The bedroom door eased open under her hand, spilling us into a space dimmed by heavy drapes that blocked the city's relentless pulse. Moonlight slipped through a crack, silvering the edges of the king bed, sheets crisp and white like fresh snow on canyon rims. Elena flicked on a low lamp, its glow warm, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. She turned to me, eyes steady, and the air hummed thicker, charged with the pull we'd carried from the couch. No words now, just her fingers trailing down my arm, guiding me closer until the cool edge of the bed pressed against my legs. We sank down together, the mattress yielding soft under our weight. Her hands found the zipper of my dress, slow and deliberate, the sound a quiet rasp in the hush. Fabric pooled at my feet, leaving skin bare to the room's chill, but her touch chased it away. Warm palms sliding up my sides, tentative at first, mapping shoulders and collarbone like learning a new trail. I shivered, not from cold, but the spark igniting where her fingers grazed. My own hands trembled as I reached for her, undoing buttons one by one, silk parting to reveal the curve of her neck, the rise of her chest. Her skin felt alive under my touch, soft and yielding, a contrast to the calluses I'd earned gripping ropes and tools. We explored like that, hands tentative, tracing ribs and hips, breaths quickening in the dim light. The sheets tangled cool against my back, but her body warmed me, pressing close, legs slipping between mine. Whispers broke the quiet then, her lips at my ear. "I need this. You," she breathed, voice raw, need threading through like wind through fence camps. I echoed it back, words stumbling soft. "Me too," as our bodies shifted, finding rhythm in the press and pull. Hips met slow at first, building like a gathering storm, hands clutching sheets and each other. Pleasure uncoiled deep, waves rolling through me, unlocking truths I'd buried under ranch dust and silence. This wasn't just touch, it was recognition, her curves fitting mine like pieces long separated. Lips met again, hungrier, tasting salt and want, tongues brushing in a dance that mirrored the sway below. Time blurred, the world narrowing to her gasps, my own low moans, the slick heat where we joined. Barriers fell, layer by layer, fear, pretense, the walls I'd built against this pull. In her arms, I moved free, chasing the crest until it broke, shuddering through us both, leaving echoes in the quiet. We lay spent after, limbs tangled, breaths slowing to match the lamp's steady flicker. Her head rested on my shoulder, hair spilling dark across my chest. And I traced idle patterns on her arm, feeling the rise and fall of her ribs. The internal shift settled deep. This is me, I thought. The realization blooming warm as sun on dew-kissed grass. No more shoving desires into shadows. This awakening felt real, solid as the ground under boots after rain. Pleasure lingered, not just in the body, but in the soul, confirming what whispers in the wind had hinted for years. I was hers in this moment, and she mine. Two women claiming space in a world that often denied it. Talk came easy in the afterglow, voices low against the pillows. Elena shifted, propping on an elbow, her fingers toying with a strand of my hair. "I've chased shadows before," she said, eyes distant for a beat. A woman in the city, all flash and promises, left me hollow when the deal soured, like she'd invested in me for the payout. Another, quieter, but fear one. She walked away before we could build. Success shields you, but it doesn't hold you at night. Her words carried ache, the kind that echoed my own hidden fractures. I nodded, hand finding hers. Rural doubts hit different. Back home, it's the weight of eyes. Neighbors who know your ma's pew, the way church talks twist feelings into sin. I've doubted myself into silence, wondering if this pull makes me unfit for the land that raised me. Clara's family, too. They'd see it as betrayal, worlds colliding in ways that shatter trust. The stakes rose sharp in that talk, Clara's face flashing in my mind, her easy laugh at the gala, oblivious to this shift. Tomorrow loomed, her questions, the ranch pulling me back to fences and feed, Elena's empire demanding her dawn. Family ties knotted tight, gossip a spark that could burn bridges we'd crossed together. Yet here, wrapped in sheets scented with us, the fear mixed with resolve, a quiet fire kindling against the dawn. Morning light filtered in slow gray fingers through the drapes, bringing the weight of choices heavy as dew on bent grass. Sunlight sliced through the drapes, pale and insistent, pulling me from sleep. Elena's arm draped heavy over my waist, her breath steady against my shoulder, skin still warm from the night. We lay tangled in the sheets, legs entwined like vines on a fence post, the room quiet except for the distant hum of city traffic below. For a moment, I let it hold, her weight grounding me, the faint scent of her hair mixing with the linen's crisp edge. But dawn brought the crash, reality thudding in like a gate slamming shut. What we'd done hung there, solid as the calluses on my palms. No longer a dream chased in the dark. My chest tightened, the awakening from last night twisting into something sharper, laced with the pull back to the life I'd known. She stirred first, eyes fluttering open, a slow smile curving her lips as she traced my arm with her thumb. "Morning," she murmured, voice rough from sleep, leaning in for a kiss that lingered soft. I returned it, but the warmth faded quick under the light's glare. We sat up, slow, sheets pooling around our hips, the penthouse's cool air raising goose flesh on my skin. Coffee brewed in the kitchen, strong, black, the steam curling like mist off the river at first light. We sipped it at the counter, bare feet on the chilled tile, her robe loose, mine borrowed and too big, hanging off my shoulders. Practical talk crept in then, words measured like portions of feed. "I've got meetings at 9, she said, staring into her mug, steam fogging the glass. Deals stacking up, calls from coasts I can't ignore. Her world pulled at her, sharp edges of boardrooms and handshakes, the empire she'd built demanding its toll. I nodded, gripping my cup tighter. Ranch waits for no one. Dawn chores, horses to feed, fences to check before the heat builds. Clara will be wondering where I vanished to after the gala. The contrast hit hard, her city rhythm clashing with my Earth's steady churn. 2 lives yanking us apart before we'd even caught our breath. Fears rose then, coiling tight in my gut like barbed wire snagging a sleeve. Back home, small towns held grudges longer than droughts, gossip spreading faster than wildfire over dry grass. If word slipped, me, tangled with Elena, Clara's sister, it would unravel everything. Family fallout loomed large. Ma's disappointed shake of the head over Sunday pie, Pa's silence heavier than a storm cloud. The ranch hands whispering behind pitchforks. Church eyes would narrow, turning a glance into judgment, branding the Sapphic pull as something to bury deeper than old bones. Elena's world carried its own thorns. Investors sniffing weakness, her polished image cracking under scrutiny. They'd say I'm distracted, unreliable, she admitted, setting her mug down with a clink. But you, out there, it's not just talk. It could cost you the ground under your feet. Her hand found mine across the counter, squeezing once, but the fear echoed mine. Rural isolation amplified by city isolation, both trapping us in secrets we'd have to guard. Resolve tested me hard in that kitchen light, the want to run surging like a spooked horse bolting for open pasture. Safety called, back to the ranch's familiar ache, mucking stalls and avoiding eyes that asked too much, shoving this night into the same drawer as other unspoken wants. I stood, pacing to the window, city sprawl stretching endless below, feeling small against it. But Elena rose, crossing the space quiet, her arms wrapping from behind, chin on my shoulder. Her pull held me, steady as an anchor in floodwater, the warmth of her body reminding me of the truths we'd unlocked. "We don't have to rush," she whispered, breath warm on my neck. "This doesn't end here." The words settled, a quiet promise forming. We'd keep it secret for now, nurture it slow like a seedling in rocky soil, stolen texts and hidden meats weaving through our days. Lips brushed my temple, sealing it, the decision fragile, but real. I dressed soon after, the borrowed clothes feeling foreign again, and she drove me back toward the highway's edge. The sun climbed higher, burning off the night's haze. Back at the ranch, Claire's questions started the real test. Her truck already parked by the barn, voice calling out sharp over the wind. The ranch dust settled back over me like an old coat, gritty and familiar. I grabbed the pitchfork from the barn wall, the handle worn smooth from years of grip, and plunged it into the stall's muck. Hay and manure mixed under the tines, heavy as regret, but my mind wandered far from the chore. Elena's face flickered in every shadow, her hand on my cheek in the car, the way her breath had caught during our night. I shoveled harder, sweat beading on my forehead, the sun climbing hot over the ridge. Thoughts of her clung stubborn, like burrs on wool after a trail ride. The horses stamped restless in their boxes, mirroring the churn inside me, but work pulled me through, one load at a time. Evenings brought quiet, staring at the horizon where city lights hid beyond the hills, her absence a weight in my chest. My phone buzzed first that afternoon, screen lighting up in the tack room's dim glow. A text from her. Thinking of the way you taste like earth and whiskey. Heat flushed my face, fingers hovering before I typed back. Missed the pull already. Stolen moments built from there. Quick messages in the dead hours. Plans sketched, careful to dodge prying eyes. We'd meet at a diner off the highway, tucked in a booth where truckers drowned out our whispers, or a pullout on back roads where gravel crunched under tires. Her car would roll up silent, headlights cutting the dark, and she'd step out, arms opening before words. Those nights fed the secret, her hand finding mine across the console, the air between us thick as fog rolling off the river. Clara noticed the shift quick, her eyes narrowing over breakfast one morning, steam rising from our coffee mugs like questions unspoken. She leaned on the counter, arms crossed, the kitchen smelling of bacon grease and fresh bread. "You've been off since the gala," she said, voice probing gentle but firm, like testing a fence post. "Disappearing like that. What happened? You and Elena talk business or something?" I stirred my cup, sugar swirling slow, heart kicking under her gaze. "Just caught up in the crowd," I muttered, avoiding her eyes, the lie tasting bitter as overbrewed tea. She pushed, recounting the night's shine, her pride in Elena spilling out, but suspicion lingered in the tilt of her head. I changed the subject to ranch needs, fence lines sagging, feed prices climbing, but her watchfulness stuck, a shadow over our easy rhythm. Afternoons, she'd catch me smiling at my phone, brow furrowing, and I'd shove it in my pocket, cheeks burning. The bond deepened in those hidden drives, her car eating miles under star-pricked skies. We'd talk dreams then, voices low, against the engine's hum. Hers of scaling back the empire, building something rooted, maybe a place where city met soil, without the grind. "Imagine a cabin on the edge," she'd say, hand squeezing mine. Windows open to the wind, no schedules chaining us. I'd share visions of leaving the ranch's pull behind, not all at once, but carving space for this, us, open and unhidden, chasing sunsets without glancing back. The road blurred, her thumb tracing my knuckles, the possibility warming like firelight on cold nights. Laughter slipped in, dry and shared, over stories of botched deals or spooked calves, binding us tighter than the secrets we kept. Courage built slow, facing my reflection in the bathroom mirror after long days, water dripping from my face like unshed tears. The woman staring back had new lines, resolve in the set of her jaw, eyes clearer, owning this awakening like claiming unplowed ground. No more burying the pull. It was mine, real as the dirt on my boots. Elena's words echoed, steadying me through the doubt. A family event forced confrontation soon after. Elena there, among the crowd, tension thick as summer heat. The family gathering sprawled under the big oak, tables laden with potato salad and ribs still sizzling on the grill. Smoke curled lazy into the late afternoon sky, mixing with the scent of cut grass and distant rain. Folks milled around, plates in hand, laughter rising sharp over the clink of bottles. Clara's kin had gathered for Pa's birthday, the ranch yard alive with cousins chasing kids, aunts stirring iced tea in pitchers sweating beads. I moved through it all, helping set chairs, my boots sinking into the soft earth, but tension coiled tight in my chest, thick as summer heat pressing down before a storm breaks. Elena was there, unexpected, her car parked discreet among the trucks. She'd arrived mid-afternoon, hugging Clara tight, her city polish softened in jeans and a simple blouse. But her eyes found mine across the yard, holding steady like a lodestar in fog. We kept distance at first, nods and small talk over the food line. "Pass the corn," she'd say, fingers brushing mine deliberate under the tablecloth, sparking heat that flushed my neck. The crowd buffered us, voices blending into a hum, but every glance felt loaded, pulling taut like a fence wire stretched to snapping. Hearts raced under my ribs, thudding heavy as I laughed at Uncle's jokes, Clara beside me, chattering about ranch fixes. Then the close call hit, near the cooler, grabbing drinks. Our hands met on a bottle, lingering a beat too long. Clara turned sharp, brow furrowing. "You two okay?" she asked, voice light but eyes probing. Elena pulled back smooth, smiling easy. "Just clumsy," she said, but her gaze flicked to me, dark with warning. My pulse hammered, sweat prickling under my shirt, the fear of unraveling right there in the open yard clawing up. We stepped apart, but the air hummed charged, the secret straining against the casual press of family. She couldn't hold it longer. As dusk fell, strings of lights flickering on overhead, Elena caught my elbow near the barn's shadow. "Walk with me," she murmured, voice low, pulling me toward the back pasture where the horses grazed, quiet. The path crunched underfoot, gravel giving way to grass still warm from the day. We stopped by the split-rail fence, the wood rough against my palms as I gripped it hard. Tension broke then, her words spilling urgent. "This hiding, it's eating us." Stolen texts, glances that could burn holes. I want more. Us, out there. No shadows. Her eyes flashed in the fading light, frustration etching lines around her mouth, the millionaire's poise cracking like dry creek bed. She paced a step, hand raking through her hair. "My world's full of masks already. With you, I thought we'd build something real, not this half-life." The demand hung heavy, her vulnerability raw, mirroring the ache I'd carried since the gala. I leaned on the fence, the rail digging into my arms, heart pounding like hooves on hardpack. Fear surged, thick and familiar, the rural weight of eyes that judged before asking, the fallout waiting like thunder on the horizon. "It's not that simple," I said, voice steady but edged. "Back here, secrets keep the peace. Clara finds out, it's not just words. Family splits. The ranch feels like enemy ground. I've admitted the fear every night, staring at the ceiling while wind rattles the panes. This pull, this love, it's wrecked me quiet for years. But silence? That's death slow, burying us alive." Words poured then, admitting the terror of small-town whispers twisting into isolation, church doors closing, the land I'd worked turning foreign under scrutiny. Yet choosing love over that hush felt like stepping into the open, wind whipping free. She stopped pacing, closing the gap, her hand finding my cheek, thumb brushing rough from emotion. The emotional peak crested under the emerging stars, pinpricks against the deepening blue. I pulled her close, arms wrapping tight, her body fitting mine like it had in the penthouse. Warm, solid, breath sinking in the cooling air. "We'll seek it together," I whispered, lips against her temple, the vow settling deep as roots in soil. "No more hiding. Slow, but forward." She nodded, embrace tightening, the stars witnesses to our stand, courage blooming sharp against the night's edge. We faded back to the gathering's glow, the ongoing path stretching ahead, courage found in the quiet hold of her hand brushing mine one last time. I drove home alone after, the truck's headlights cutting the dark road. But lighter now, the weight lifted like fog burning off at dawn. This awakening demanded pursuit, no matter the cost. The judgments, the splits, the uncharted ground. If you've chased your own truths like that, share below. Subscribe for more stories of finding that courage.